Welcome to Backboard Banter on the board with your hosts Matt Middleton and Kevin Rayner, where the banter's as ferocious as those Dame to Giannis lob dunks we're going to see all year, man. Those are going to be filthy.
From out of nowhere, the Bucks seemingly show up, make a great trade. We'll break it down later, but most importantly, Dame and Giannis are going to play together. It's a beautiful combination that is going to terrorize the Eastern Conference next year.
You know how everyone talked about, Embiid and Harden being the new Shaq and Kobe? Nah, guys, like this is the new Shaq and Kobe.
Straight up.
They couldn't have had two more perfect, tailor-made players for each other. They make up for each other's deficiencies. Dame's long-range shooting spreads the floor, and Giannis's ability to defend, out in space and at the rim just protects Dame. And like, I feel bad for Drew Holiday. We'll get into it, but man, what a trade. What a
It's
great, great move.
it's fantastic, and we saw inklings of it at the All-Star game last year. Giannis picked Dame with his first pick, not Drew. Maybe this was all. Look, we knew that they wanted to play together. We'll talk about it down the line. We have to, though, return to football. It's been 2 weeks. We got to go back to these games because, man, I'm 2-0. I know. I can't believe it.
Bro,
How did this happen? What's going on here? The Saints squeak out
I
a win
watch
against the Panthers?
I watch Sunday football all the time. And you never watch Sunday football, and yet I'm 0-2 out here and you're 2-0? Like, what is this garbage, man? I mean, the Saints beating the Panthers was
Yeah.
was pretty predictable. I mean, the Saints haven't given up 20 points in 12 straight games. That
Wow.
is a nut stat. Like that is a defense. 20 points, like that is like pretty regular for
Yeah.
NFL offenses. So wild, wild. Good for them. Um, do I, bro? Like Kirk Cousins, like he leads the league in yards. He leads the league in touchdowns. He has less turnovers than Tua Tagovailoa, and yet they are 0-3, my friend. Like the Justin Jefferson fumbling out of the end zone, like so many turnovers. Like I think they gave the ball away 3 times in that first half.
Just
Like
wild.
my
Yeah,
Super Bowl
exactly.
pick.
Hey, lots of
Broken.
seasons still left for them to maybe turn it around. It's not like the points aren't happening. It's not like, they're not making things happen. They're just not getting the W's at the end of the day, right?
Bro, leading the league in yards and touchdowns. Everyone's talking about Tua as the MVP. Oh my God, this offense is absolutely ridiculous. They just put up 70 points this weekend, man. They absolutely beat down the Denver Broncos. And
Wild.
yet doesn't have as many yards as Kirk Cousins or touchdowns. And Kirk is I don't even want to talk about it,
It
man.
it hurts. I get it. Look, okay, let's move on. Let's move away from the pain and let's talk about some wild weirdness that's happening in the NFL, okay? The whole of America tuned in to see Travis Kelce play. Oh wait, no, it wasn't Travis Kelce playing. It was for a glimpse, just a little glimpse to maybe see Taylor Swift at this football game. And as Matt was telling me, and as we've all seen earlier, she was pretty hyped and had a good time at that game the other day.
Yeah, man. Her and Mama Kelsey were hanging out in the booth, and yeah, it seemed like she had a really good time. I think it's absolutely wild what her appearance at the game has done for Travis Kelsey. Like
Yeah,
he's now the top 5 in jersey sales. I think it went up like 300%. The fact that like he got like 380,000 extra followers on social media, like absolutely nuts. And it's just kind of wild to see like the Taylor Swift effect on the NFL. And who knows if they're dating? Who knows if they're, doing it as a marketing ploy? All I know is that it's working, man. Like that's all I can say is that it's definitely working.
this is it, right? Everyone's paying attention. Mahomes feels like he's got to throw a touchdown because Swifty's in the house, right? Like it's so interesting to see this whole world come together. I mean, my mom is asking that Taylor Swift is dating a football player. I mean, if that says anything about the world that we live in, that, a Canadian woman in Ontario, Canada is interested in potentially what's going on in the NFL. She does not watch the Super Bowl, by the way. So, like, it's just a really fun story to see how it all comes together.
Man, Taylor Swift's got that pull, and even like Marissa's like, oh, maybe I'll watch to see Taylor Swift. Apparently, 68% increase in viewership from females between the ages of 18 to 40.
Wild.
Like, wild stat. Yeah, good for them. I think it's kind of like a cute story, but the original Swift Kelsey relationship that's in my heart is of the Eagles team and my boy DeAndre Swift. Can we get him some extra carries out here? Kenneth Gainwell, what are you
Seriously.
doing, man? Just stealing it, stealing my Jalen Hurts, stop stealing my touchdowns. Give him to DeAndre Swift. This guy was so good at Georgia. And then he was so good in Detroit on his rookie contract and they gave him away for nothing, a fourth round pick. And I picked him because this man is so good every
Right.
year. He puts up so many stats. Last year he got snaked from Jamal Williams, who I love Jamal Williams, but snaked all of his touchdowns. And like this year, Kenneth Gainwell's taking his touches. How about we give it to the guy who just rushed for 300 yards in 2 weeks?
Jeez.
Let's do that. Let's give it to that guy.
Make it happen,
Come on,
honestly.
team.
Like,
Come on,
uh,
Philadelphia.
I feel for you, man. I'm hoping. I'm praying for your fantasy stats because you're having a tough time over there, my friend.
I mean, 1-2 is not bad to start the season. It's a close loss last week. When you put up 120 points and you still lose, like, it is what it is.
Hey, if I know anything about you in our fantasy basketball league, Matt's great at, maybe not having the best season, but he always shows up in the playoffs. So we know you know what you're doing over there.
buddy, it's not about the longevity. It's about playing for those last few months. That's how you win championships.
Mm-hmm.
Got the right
Mm-hmm.
mindset,
All right, all right. Let's finish out football here. Let's move on. We haven't talked about him yet. Didn't start with him because Dion got kicked back a little bit, but hey, the team is still great. And as you mentioned earlier, if you're gonna beat him, you got to beat him now because Dion says
like
he's at his lowest point.
like you said, man. Like if you're gonna get him now because he's only going up from here. And like at the end of the day, the hardest thing to do as a football team is to build a dominant offensive and defensive front. You win the NFL in the trenches. The skilled guys get paid the most. Like they get paid. They're the flashy players. They're the
Yeah,
players everybody knows. The Jamar Chases, the Joe Burrows, the Patrick Mahomes. Those guys can't do their jobs without the big men, protecting them and the big men getting after the other team's quarterback.
yeah.
And so yeah, it was expected that his team was going to get pushed around a little bit. And Oregon has had years and years to stack up that defensive talent, and they sacked Shador 7 times that game. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is. Really tough opponent. They're a top 10 team for a reason. And yeah, it's Colorado's first year of actually being decent. I mean, we're 4 games into the season, and they've already tripled their win total from last year. So that
This
tells you something. He's on the right track. So
right. This,
I feel
this is the
bad for
thing.
him, but I love the way he handled it. I love it.
Exactly right. Like anyone who expected this Cinderella story to keep going over and over and over once it got to the best of the best teams was a little delusional. I mean, we all had hope, obviously. We all want for primetime, but
Yeah.
we'll let this simmer for a bit. This ain't going away anytime soon. This storyline, this man, he's gonna be around. This team ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, man. I think next year if Shador doesn't go out like Dion says, like Dion wants to keep him in school for another year. Yeah, I think like national championship could be the conversation. They play USC this week, which is a really tough opponent because they're playing
Yeah.
Caleb Williams and probably what is the number one offense in the NCAA with Washington. But man, if they can like bounce back against USC, maybe lose close or even sneak out a victory, which I doubt because I think USC is just better than them.
Yeah.
That'd be great for the program and keep that momentum going, man. I don't think anybody expected a national championship this year. Most people had them as like 20-point dogs to TCU in the first game. So like they showed out, they showed up, and it's just been really nice to see, man. Like good for them.
It's still an amazing story, and everybody who's a part of it is having a great time down there, regardless of
Yeah.
taking an L like this. So yeah, we'll continue to watch it. We'll still enjoy it. I know I'm paying attention, man. Like Dion is just such an entertaining guy. How can you not?
Which is crazy, right? Like the fact that like, I'm not a huge NCAA guy. You don't watch much football, and that storyline's pulling you in. I mean, that's just the power of Dion, and I think that's great. I think that having a player of Dion's caliber now become a coach and attract what he's done to a small little program like that, is amazing. And I think that Dion is awesome. And so everybody wants to watch him. Everybody's talking, there's the Twitter mob talking about how it's overhyped. Well, like it's hyped because everybody's watching it, man. Like everybody, like you, like me, like everyone.
the
So
the fact
I
of the
think it's
matter
awesome.
is we're in a really interesting time where, you know, people are mad at television and big box office companies for making poor decisions and doing this, and with Twitch on the rise and young kids in gaming, like a single person with a good brand and the right message can pull mass amounts of people into a community. So I won't be surprised if, the right, sports stars can follow in his footsteps and we see more of this type of trend in the future, because especially kids, they love to follow idols. They love to pay attention to these storylines. And if we're done with this and we want to flip to basketball now, we're talking about a guy who is about to make a lot of kids in Milwaukee real happy, because, they've had Giannis for years, and that's a great story. But to add another top 75 player of all time in Dame, Milwaukee fans, get ready for a great season.
And they're gonna get to keep Giannis now. Like kind of heartbreaking for us as Raptors fans because we all had our hopes set that these comments this year, rocking the boat, maybe he'd fall out of it and the Raptors would come and scoop him up. But I think Milwaukee definitely got the hint. Milwaukee
Oh,
went
yeah.
after Damian Lillard and I think crushed this trade. Yeah, makes them a little bit weaker as a depth option, but I do think that he provides enough of an upgrade over Drew Holiday, especially at the offensive position, especially at making sure that their offense clicks. They might take a step back a little bit defensively, but
Yep.
that offense is going to be so much more prolific because how are you gonna guard Dame from 40 feet and also stop Giannis from barreling it down into the cup? You can't do both, and
It's
so you're gonna die by one. And I don't know which one is more deadly. I think they're both some of the most dangerous ways to die in the league. So
absolutely. And I think starting with the Bucks is the best place to go with this trade, because they're getting the moneymaker. They get the best player available. It's a big trade. It's a three-team trade. There's, I think, 8 players almost moving across it when it comes to it, maybe
yeah,
7. But for Damian Lillard, apparently the rumor is that, 10 plus how many days ago he in private was like, I could go to the Bucks. I could go to the Nets. Those were teams that he apparently expanded his list to. And thinking about it now, good for the Bucks for keeping all of this as under the wraps as they did. In reality, when the Raptors were this close to making a trade, and we'll get into that. We'll talk about the Raptors side of things later, but the Bucks were pushed into a corner by their superstar. Not aggressively pushed, but Giannis was like, "Hey, hang out there, and I might walk out this door if I want to. We'll see what happens." And they stepped up and said, "We're gonna make this decision." By far the greatest player Giannis has ever played with. As we mentioned to open up, a perfect combination for two stars in what they can and can't do together. Like, it's so beautiful to see, and as big Giannis fans that we are, we're so excited for the
yeah.
opportunity that he's going to have. Dame, has tweeted out that he's excited for his next opportunity. So, regardless of how pissed his camp apparently is and what they're saying about Portland, like, he goes to a contender. In my opinion, the Bucks are the best team in the East right now. When you think about the starting five, whether you're rotating Pat Connaughton in or not, or Bobby Portis, because those are kind of the 2, 5, 6 guys, to have Dame, to have Chris, who, we were talking about how Chris doesn't need to be as big of an option. Now he's absolutely number 3 and can be number 4 to Brooke Lopez, who has a great shooting night. Like, what are we talking about? The amount of threes that this team is going to put down, the amount of spacing that is going to be provided. I'm so pumped for Bucks games next season.
Bro, he is we talked about it earlier, but he is probably the best interior player in the NBA when you consider both ends of the floor in Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
And you have probably the second best perimeter player guard in the NBA. I mean, Dame Lillard, Steph Curry. I love, to throw that idea out there of if Dame had been in, Golden State, that team might have looked slightly different, but they probably still would have won championships. If you give
Right.
him the right cast, we have seen him, shoot a 36 footer and it was a bad shot, but that went in. So he eliminates teams, right? Bye bye. It's Dame time.
That's the thing.
So
And Giannis has, like, Chris Middleton will steal games. Everyone who listens and knows me will know I talk about Game 6 Chris and what he's capable of doing. But to have a closer in Damian Lillard, to think about what Giannis has had to do in the playoffs with this team, where he's had to pull. You think about the 52 burger he had to put down to win a championship. Only has to be a 40 burger if Dame's going to drop 36 and maybe three-pointers to close in the last couple of minutes of a game. Like, I could talk for days about what this will bring the Bucks and the positivity of it, but you also have to bring up the question marks, right? Can Pat Connaughton be that second player in the rotation, be defensively strong enough? Is Bobby a strong enough rotational piece? What else does this team have? Maybe Thanasis is going to be the ninth guy on this team, because who knows? Maybe he's been working on his 3-point shot. There's a lot of options now, but when you think about the top 5, or especially the top 4 of this team in the East, no questions. They've got it, man. Boston is going to have a tough time, and whether or not they can figure out the Kristaps Porzingis situation is really going to determine whether the Bucks are number 1 or Boston is, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I also think that like now I'm gonna go back to a positive that they have a closer, like you
Yeah,
said, Giannis for being consensus #1 player in the NBA until Nikola Jokic won the championship this year, and being a consensus top 3 player in the NBA by everyone. If you don't have him in the top 3, you don't watch basketball.
get out of here.
Uh,
Yeah.
he's not a closer.
Yep.
Like being at that level, he is not a closer because a guy like Jason Tatum, who's definitely not on, there's similar levels, but not on that, pedestal just yet. Threes beat twos at the end of the game.
Yeah.
When it's tight, when Jason Tatum can go down, dribble, 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 pull up three, hit it, and you have to go barreling through their defense and over Rob Williams and dunk it. That's a hard task to get to the cup.
Yep.
Plus, you're getting a 2, not a 3. And so now that just gives them that extra option. Yeah, it's gonna thin out their depth, but I think like you mentioned it when you texted me about it, like ring chasers are going to go there. If I'm a John Wall, if I'm a Isaiah Thomas wants to go there, like all these guys are now going to be coming out of the woodworks. I could play 15, 20 minutes a night for you. I could play 10 minutes in the playoffs and give you serviceable minutes behind a
Right.
Damian Lillard or a Pat Connaughton. Like, and that like expands their horizon of the players who are interested in coming there and who want to win the championship because
Yep.
at the end of the day, I think like in the East, yes, Boston's right there, but I think they're a clear cut favorites, right?
Yeah, no, and I'm with you. And I think the last thing when you think about the Bucks is people will complain, oh, you gave up all this defensive caliber and Drew Holiday. Yes, they did. No discredit to Drew. We'll talk about his future and where he goes once we talk about the Blazers side of things. But yeah, they've given up a great player, but you are still anchored by 2 all NBA defenders in Brook Lopez and Giannis. And Dame's gonna hustle, and we watched Drew get unfortunately a little bit destroyed on the perimeter when it came to their playoffs last time. I don't want to get too far into it, but like that conversation, I think for pundits is ridiculous. Like Milwaukee, as you mentioned earlier, is such a defensive powerhouse. We're not that worried about it. The offensive gains are well worth it.
No, I think that it's huge, right? Yeah, okay, you can attack Dame defensively, but you're gonna have to get past Brook Lopez and Giannis. And Giannis is one of the only players in the NBA who can guard out in space and still be protecting the rim all at the same time.
Yep.
And you add Brook Lopez at the back end as the true anchor of that defense, like man,
What
I don't think that it really hurts them that much because, like you said, yes, Dame isn't the best defender, but he's going to put forth the effort. He is this season, and they have a really good shot at winning 60 plus games.
Absolutely.
Really good.
And Dame's coming off maybe his best season of his career as well. Like underrated, maybe just a little bit. He's had a couple injuries the past few seasons, but they've been minimal, and he is shooting the lights out, and he is ready to go and go all in for this season. We'll talk about the Bucks more when it comes to the rest of the year. We'll talk about where they want to go. Matt, I'll give the choice to you: Blazers or Suns. The other parts of this trade, where do you
Blazers,
want to
bro.
go? Blazers. Okay.
Blazers,
Okay.
because they're the other real major player. I know Phoenix gave up DeAndre Ayton, but again, he's going to Portland, which is a great piece to add as part of their rebuild. He's a serviceable defensive big,
Yeah.
but he is great around the glass. He's great. And so when you have guys like Scoot and Anthony and Shaden Sharp, it gives them that big that they get to play with now. It helps them. He fits their timeline, and they're gonna flip Drew. I mean, like instantly when we found out about this trade, I was like, oh, they're on the phone with some teams right now.
They'll
Hey,
get at
first round pick.
they'll get
Hey,
at
two
least a
first round
first round
picks.
pick.
Hey,
At
right,
least one
right.
first round pick. They have to. Drew is by far worth that for sure.
I mean, Milwaukee paid what 4 or 5 for him.
They paid a bunch, that's for sure. But yeah, when you think about this potential Portland lineup, right? Scoot, Anthony, you can put Shaden in at 3 if you want, or you can put Jeremy Grant there. When you think about what Aiden can provide, like they have a lot of young, serviceable options. Portland's fun. Like we have to be honest here, Portland's fun. They're moving Drew because they're gonna go in on this rotation of 3 guards they have. So go find a wing, even. Go find a small forward. Maybe you go and get Kevin Porter Jr. if he wants to be a wing out of the Rockets. I'm sure the Rockets would like to do something. Who knows?
Bro,
Like,
Kevin Porter Jr. cannot be in the league. Sorry,
I know,
just
I
I'm gonna
know,
say
I
that
know.
he cannot
But
be in the league.
the
No,
the Blazers will figure out their
sorry.
future, and they've got young pieces that are gonna have fun. And if you're a fan right now who's thinking, man, that was a great run we just had with the greatest player of our franchise history and Dame.
Clyde.
Well, yeah,
Sorry, buddy.
I know what you mean, but it's like you think about where the next steps are. Like it's gonna be rough, but you at least have some good young talent, and you didn't trade all of that away for maybe 1 or 2 pieces to go with Dame and have nothing else to go with it. So shout out to the
and
Blazers for getting the best that they could.
and who knows? Because like Scoot could be as good as Dame ever was in his
Yeah,
prime. So like, yeah, you lose out on definitely a Hall of Fame or definitely a top 75 player of NBA history, but you're going with a new movement. At least you have a clear direction.
yeah,
When you're bad and you get a draft pick, you're accumulating the young talent to go along with this roster instead of trying to use that talent to, get yourself an OG Anunoby or a Pascal Siakam.
yeah.
And so like it's gonna help the franchise. It's gonna help, with their process, and everybody's on the same page now. And they're gonna accumulate more assets once they flip Drew. I think like even if you keep Drew, you get a grown up in the room who plays defense.
Seriously,
He can teach you guys the nuances of the NBA defensive game. And like Drew Holiday, Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, Jeremy Grant, and DeAndre Ayton. That's actually not bad,
that could be a play-in team. They win the right amount of games,
right?
right?
This is
Yeah.
bad.
This is the thing.
Okay.
They're in a good place. Portland has probably made a great decision. When you think about apparently what Miami was actually offering, because we don't really know, because Dame's camp is coming out saying that Miami did everything they could. Do we really appreciate Pat Riley? Blah blah blah. At the end of the day, he didn't get to Miami. It didn't happen. Miami definitely did not have the best trade package available, especially when you consider how people feel about Tyler Hero right now in the league. So Miami fans, yeah, you guys are in shambles because your A plan is dead, and your backup plan of Giannis is now also dead because those plans came together. So, am I upset for Miami? No, they were just in an NBA Finals. They'll be okay. They've still got Jimmy Butler. Pat Riley believes this team can run it back. I don't think that, but that's a whole nother
I know.
story, right? But well done for the Blazers for at least reaching out and doing their due diligence and getting not only a fantastic package, but one that gets their star to a contender.
Yeah, no, I mean they did right by Dame, right? And that's kind of the whole key to this trade was doing right by Dame. And Milwaukee is more than good enough to win a championship.
Yeah,
And for people who are like complaining about it, kick rocks. I
right.
don't know what to tell you.
Honestly,
The only real weird thing for me in this whole trade is the Phoenix Suns. I think that the Phoenix Suns kind of got worse at the center position. I know they added Grayson Allen. And they added some depth. Like, it just kind of feels weird.
yeah.
But do you think they just did it because they really don't like him as a person?
I think that they did it because they had to. Because Aiden is so checked out. The comments of him, I haven't talked to Monty. Like, as someone who works with 10-year-olds and 11-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 8-year-olds, like I can see children who, I can't really talk with you. I can't have a conversation with. I just have to put them in the corner. As much as that sucks, sometimes you just can't reason with people. And I think DeAndre Ayton likes playing NBA 2K more than he likes playing regular basketball. Simply, I really do think that. And when you look at the Suns and the roster that they have with Kevin Durant and the timeline that they have, and with Devin Booker being absolutely at the peak of his prime, you have to have everyone locked in. And I just don't see DeAndre Ayton getting locked in on that roster with the history that it was. And yeah, they probably got overall worse. But Nurkic will lock in as the defensive center that you need. Grayson, people hate Grayson, but he's a great shooter and he's gonna do good things for this roster. And like
Number two, right?
Nasir Little and
Points per
Keon,
spot of possession.
exactly. And when you think about Nasir Little and Keon Johnson, the other two players in this pick, most fans will have no idea who these players are. They're both players that I've liked as young talents. I'm not expecting them to be anything, but one of them might be able to be the ninth guy, the eighth guy in this rotation and put up solid minutes. When you play with Kevin Durant, a lot of opportunity is available for you, especially when Devin Booker is playing as good as he is. So I'm with you. I don't love it because it is a little bit weird, but I feel like the Suns' hands were tied and they had to make a decision about Aiton. And this probably wasn't the best trade they could have gotten when you think about what maybe the Raptors were offering. But hey, the Suns ended up moving on from Aiton and they've got serviceable pieces. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I just like for all the Raptors fans that are like, hey, we definitely had a better package out there for him, and we could have, dangled OG, we could have put Gary Trent, picks, Grady Dick in there. Like, okay, so you're gonna sell the entire farm to get Damian Lillard to play with Pascal Siakam and Scotty Barnes. Like, I like that, and I think that puts us as a contender, but it's not like a clear cut championship team like Milwaukee is. And people are still worried about Milwaukee
Yep.
winning the championship. And we don't have a player as close to Giannis. Like I love Siakam, but when you're, fringe top 20, definitely top 25, like that is nowhere near top 3 player status. Nowhere near, not the same ballpark. And so like people feel that way about Milwaukee. How are we going to do? It was not a Kawhi situation at all. I don't care what people say.
No, those fans are delusional. Those fans just see star disgruntled player leads to championship. Sure, let's go for it. But it doesn't
Mhm.
happen when you don't have the right pieces. And the Raptors were so deep then. And I don't need to talk about the Suns. And we could talk about the other Eastern Conference contenders as we get into this conversation. I'm down to talk about the Raptors now because I love the fact that there is a deleted Shams tweet out there that said that the Raptors were agreeing to a 4-team trade. Like, regardless of whether he got his information right or wrong, we were this close, right? And the fact that reports are out that we weren't willing to offer Scotty and we weren't willing to offer OG makes me start to really think about what could have been, right? And there's no way the perfect scenario works out for the Raptors, but a starting lineup of Dame, OG, Scotty, Siakam, and like
Total.
having Portal as well, like obviously would have been insane, would have been dumb, would have been unreal. Who cares what our bench is? There's no way that we come out with highway robbery in a trade that is Gary Trent, Grady Dick, everything else we've got in packages. Because on the one hand, we don't want to give up the bag, but on the other hand, Portland is smarter than that, and I think they've ended up with a great trade.
Well, I think like Portland, they kind of were waiting for a team to give them the majority of their assets.
Yeah.
So they could say, like, hey, like we got everything that we could out of this team for Dame. Because Miami apparently wasn't, willing to give up Jovic. Apparently it was like Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, and picks.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's not going to look great for the Portland fan base. Like, how come we can't get that and that? Like, what do you mean? Like, Dame is the number two, number one player in our franchise history. Like,
Yeah.
we should be able to get more. This was everything Milwaukee had. Like outside of really key championship pieces, this is what they had to offer, and they even got rid of one of their championship pieces in Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
And so I think Portland can look at that and feel good about it. Whereas, like, if we're not giving them OG, if we're not giving them Gary Trent, if we're not giving them Scotty Barnes, like, we're
And
giving them our leftovers. And
and
that's
I
not what they
can
want.
and I can compare it to like the Kyle Lowry trade. Different situation, different level of player. But people clowned the Raptors for what they got for Kyle. Now, part of that was, the league's opinion on Toronto Raptors players and making a deal with Canada. But when you think about what they got back for Dame and the value that he's worth, considering how ridiculous the league is because of Rudy Gobert, the fan base can't really clown them at this point in time. And I think the Raptors 5 years from now, 2, 3 years from now, will be happy with the way this worked out. Because yeah, we've lost out on Giannis now. Yeah, we're not getting Dame, but there's no question marks anymore. We're gonna run with this team. We're gonna let these kids go off. We're gonna let Darko have fun with this squad, and we're really gonna give the reins to Scotty. This team lives and dies with Scotty this year, honestly, because he is the glue that allows Pascal to thrive as he thrives, and OG to maybe finally take that step. All of it, I think, rests on Scotty's shoulders.
No, man, absolutely. I think that like this was a move by Masai to really underscore that this is going to be Scotty's team. And if we are middling around the trade deadline and Siakam's having a good season, trade him right now because at the end of the day, we need to start refocusing around our timeline. And I think OG, even though he's a vet, he's a young vet and he could still fit into a Scotty led championship team.
Yep.
And so for me, it's trade Siakam, get some assets, and play out the season, and hopefully we get that internal development. Hopefully Grady really pops, and it is what it is. But I think that like mortgaging more of our future just wasn't the smart decision.
Yep. And on the topic of OG, he's going to decline his player option next year. He's going to go into free agency, and if we don't give it to him, someone's giving him the max. So the idea of OG on a max, Siakam also wanting that max extension, but this is Scotty's team. Can the three of them all on maxes exist when we need to keep Grady later, when maybe we got to do something with Gary? Like, the math doesn't add up. The scenario I see is either us coming into the season, having a 20-3 start, realizing we're the greatest team of all time, and just being like, screw the money, we'll do it. Or Siakam's probably getting sold, or OG's getting sold at the trade deadline. One of those two has to break. And as you and I have discussed,
Gotta be Siakam.
it has to be Siakam because you get more value, one, and the age. The simple fact of the matter is OG is a perfect running mate for what Scotty can do. And Siakam is great for what Scotty can do, but he's not that same level in terms of position. And I'm sorry, OG is the best wing defender in the league, and I'm going to stand by that until someone else proves me wrong, because they haven't done it yet. In terms of what he does, like, yeah, Giannis is a big wing, sure. He has way different responsibilities, but OG's
More big
4-1, what he's capable of doing on the perimeter, it's untouchable. It's untouchable.
bro. He's good enough to guard Jokic. Like that is impressive, and he's good enough to guard Steph Curry. Like that is they're two completely opposing players, and yet OG can handle both assignments. And so, no, I 100% agree with you. I think that the Raptors made the right call at the
Yeah,
end of the day, and that's why you don't listen to fan bases because all of our fans since 2019 when we won the championship, it's how fast can we win another one? How fast can we win another one? When Kawhi left, it was never going to be fast. It
seriously.
was going to be a process because we had just lost DeMar DeRozan, who is arguably one of the greatest Raptors in franchise history. And if you want to go, for the first 10 seasons, he might be the greatest Raptor in franchise history.
Yep.
And like in terms of homegrown draft pick talent,
I mean, he is the greatest
like,
homegrown Raptor. If maybe Damian Stoudemire because first draft pick and the historicness of what that is. But no, what DeMar had to do, what he was given by Bosch when Bosch left, to hold up the reins of that city and not give in, absolutely, man. No, I'm with you on that part.
and so, yeah. And then we got nothing for Kawhi and Danny Green in return. So, I mean, it makes sense that like it's taken us down this path. And I think that we just need to pump the brakes
Yeah,
and not join the arms race because we have Siakam, and we need to flip Siakam to get assets so that hopefully Scotty can become that piece for us. So we really need to enable Scotty to become a top 10 player
yeah.
if we're going to win a championship again. Because I love Siakam. I love what he's done for our franchise. he is past the point where breaking into the top 10 is like
Yep.
something that like you can foresee in the future. With all these young players coming up, with Anthony
Yep.
Edwards showing what he did at FIBA, Shea, Luca, like all these guys, he's not going to be able to crack that top 10.
And and Siakam is a player who has continually added to his game year over every single time he comes back, and his game is better. That's a fact. But unless you're LeBron James, Father Time comes and gets you eventually, and every single year is another year closer to when that mountaintop turns. And even if Siakam has two more years of continually getting a better game, because I'd say three at most, he wouldn't have more than 3 more years of getting infinitely better at his game continuously in the way that he
Mm-hmm.
has. What are we talking about? We want to go the OKC route. We want to go the Memphis route. We want to enable that young talent to be the best that they can. And when they hit that peak, like what we did the last time with Kyle and DeMar, when Pascal was good enough coming up as that next piece, we can pull trig and have that moment. Otherwise, we're middling. And as you and I say all the time, that is the worst place
Worst
to be in
spot.
the NBA. Nobody wants to be there. Well, the
Like I'd
Pacers used to.
much rather be there in the NHL, but like much in the NFL, like MLB being middling, that's fine. NBA, the worst spot. The worst spot. Those, 8 to 20, maybe one guy will turn out to be a star. Maybe.
That's
If
the
you're
simple
lucky.
the simple fact of the matter is outside of the lottery, you're getting real lucky. And inside the lottery in the, 10 to 15, you're even getting, super lucky there
Pretty
for
lucky.
true super. So it's a wild world that it comes to, and I'm with you, man. I'm hoping that we get to a point where it is the young guns time. Darko seemingly is pretty on board for making some new things happen, and the last big thing for me is the Grady Dick conversation, because I was sitting over here thinking we were going to lose Grady, and I'm still big on Grady. I like his mindset. I think him and Scotty can have that friendship that I think a superstar needs on a roster. Every guy has somebody, whether or not they're their number 2 or number 3. They always have somebody that they need to have as that, same age, same demographic, and the two of them, they have the exact same personalities. And a 6'8" shooter, yes, please. I want Grady to come out and just destroy. That's like my dream scenario this season.
No, absolutely, man. If he could hit threes, I think it'd be the best. And like, yeah, we could talk about the other contenders in the East, but it really comes down to Milwaukee putting it together. And I think the only team that can really come close to it is Boston. And I think Boston comes up just a tad short. But that's not a big deal. I think it's Milwaukee's year, man. I'm feeling this trade. I felt that. I was pumped up about it, and I'm just happy to see Giannis get what he wants. And like the subtle pressure of doing it was so perfect. Just understated enough, but got it done.
And I gotta say, the last time that Giannis was unsure about his future, he made some comments. They traded for an all-star point guard. They won a championship, and Giannis signed an extension, and all was hunky dory. Wouldn't it be great to see it all again? I'm not ready to say that it is, Bucks all the way to a championship, because Matt and I are smart. We're true NBA fans. We know to wait until the season starts to actually make our pick. We have our preseason favorites. They're definitely my preseason favorite right now
Yeah, yeah.
on the East, because the Nuggets. We don't even need to talk about the Nuggets as a Nuggets fan over here, but
Oh, bro,
it's
we're like what, 8 months away from actually making a real prediction
this. Yeah, we're only like
with
two,
any
three.
accuracy.
Yeah, but we're 2, 3. We're only a little bit away from actual NBA basketball over here. We're about to turn into October. It's about to be exciting times.
Yeah, man, don't say that. My birthday's in October. I don't want
Okay,
to turn.
okay. Anything else you want to say, my friend, or shall we move into predictions?
Nah, man, I think you're good to move into predictions. You want to go first because you're sticking with basketball?
Yeah, I'll lead it up. I had a nice 2-0 NFL, start. I'm gonna sizzle that back a little bit, because the Dame trade happened. I feel it's honorable enough to stick to basketball. So I've watched Giannis become a better passer. He always talks about how he's underrated. The guy's been kind of stuck at 5.8, 5.9 assists a year the past 3 seasons. I think Dame's going to unlock that. I'm looking for 7 assists a year for Giannis. Come on, tell me he's not going to get 1 extra assist a game at least to Dame. Tell me I'm wrong here.
Man, no, I think that's a very safe prediction. I think that's pretty pretty awesome for Giannis to get that extra assist per game. Like he says, it's the most underrated skill in his game. But I'm gonna flip over to the football and maybe, the Giannis of the NFL with
Ooh.
Josh Allen here. Big and strong, kind of has a flaw in his game. Um, I think I'm going to take Buffalo over Miami, though. I think they hand Miami their first loss of the season. They get back into a tie for first place, and yeah, I think it's Buffalo's time this weekend. Only because they're in Buffalo.
It'd be a nice heat check for all the media panels out there that are just like swimming in the Dolphins storyline right now. And Buffalo could
Good
use,
storyline.
well, I mean, it's a great story. It is a great storyline, let's be real, but sometimes you got to have some lessons, and I think Buffalo needs a little bit of a helping hand right now, so they could definitely use
Yeah,
it.
yeah, no, absolutely, man. And I think the funniest part about the whole Dolphins thing, especially last weekend, was Mike McDaniel's, their coach, was the Broncos ball boy
No way.
at one point in his
Oh
life.
man.
Yeah.
Oh.
He grew up a Broncos fan, grew up in Denver. He actually wanted to interview for their job, their vacant job position a few years ago. They did not want to hire
So
him or interview him. And then he just dropped 70 on
so
them.
do you think this had anything to? Because I've heard that they decided not to take a field goal to go for a record. Do you think that had anything to do with it potentially?
Maybe.
Some lost
Sticking it
love
to
for
him.
an old organization? I don't know.
Man, it was a wild game. It was crazy. When you have two guys on your football team put up like almost 50 fantasy points apiece,
Yeah.
what?
I mean,
God, 200 yards rushing.
I've never seen that many points. So when I saw the stat line popping out on my feed, I was like, that can't be real. That's NBA stats right there. That's a low scoring NBA game. Like, what are we talking about?
Bro, 70-20 is one of the scores, and then like 18-17 was like the Packers Saints game. Like it was like 19-17, something like that. Like, what? Are we playing in the same league?
Fans tuned into the wrong game. They must have realized at halftime. So, oh man. Okay. Anything else
Anyways,
this week,
man.
my friend?
No, you're good to wrap us up.
Perfect. Well, thanks everybody for being here. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Board Sports. Like, subscribe, give us that thumbs up, and check out theboardsports.net for new episodes and blog posts.
And we'll talk to you next time.